Usually, what we are going to do, we have to dedicate to our work. But at the same time, that work should give the happiness to you. If it is the case of such thing, usually we'll play a light music at the background. Usually, right? Uh, to get refreshed to continue the work. So many a times what we're going to do is we keep downloads, we keep downloads and start doing some other editing works. See, this is most probably with respect to the multi parallel processing. Parallel processing. Usually the concept of thread is involved. Obviously, the services, not only the task which we are currently doing. Now I am watching both the presentation and also I'm watching the chart window and also parallelly I'm watching the code window also. So three parallel process is going on. These processes, suppose the current window is my PowerPoint presentation, other two are hidden from the visibility. Still they are running, but hidden from the visibility. Right? See, such kind of services are called as thread-based services. That is also, service is also an application. It can have the GUI. Sometimes it may not have the GUI. For example, updating the time information every second, every minute is going to be updated and projection onto a menu, right? So if you want to continue with parallel processing, parallel multitask, what we can call it as multitasking also. So the services are most widely used. Not only the concept of mobile programming, it is also the concept of most of the programming which supports the multi-threading. So our discussion is towards the Android activities. So we are limiting this discussion to the Android. Service is an application in Android that runs in the background without needing to interact with the user. So once, for example, playing background music. So once if you click on play button, you need not to interact till its end of the music. Parallelly, you can watch the other applications. Parallelly, you can having the food, you can having the tea, you can watching the TVs, you can watching with the people beside you. All these things happening, parallel processing. Online class is happening, mobile watching is happening, chatting is happening, right? So it means multitasking happens. To do with that, with respect to the Android development, services is also an application which runs in the background without needing to interact with the user. Thus, note, services are also ideal for situations in which there is no need to present a UI to the user. See, in the case of the time, time is going to be displayed onto the dashboard, right? So there, the requirement of the time application or clock application is it needs to use the graphical user interface GUI, whereas the another example is continually logs the geographical coordinates of the device. So for example, device, suppose if you lost the device, so what device which will do at the back end, it is always calculating the position, geographical coordinate like longitude and latitude of the device where it is kept. That information is not showing to you, but still it is active, right? So two types of services types. One, interaction user interaction based services. Another one is background services. It's a very important topic of discussions. Ask your friends to join back. Creating your own services, you will learn how to start and stop services. Okay, I think I hope you understood that what is service. Service is also an application. It has two different types. One is user interaction interacted with services application through GUI interface. The another one is services running behind the scene. Suppose in the presentation you have a example screen. You have an example screen. In this example screen, there are two services. It means here action bar, start service button, stop service button, and one more here service started toast notification is displaying. When you click on start service, this is going to be bind the service or the process which happens. This kind of service, start service, stop services, it uses the user interaction here, right? You need to click on the button to start or stop the service. This a user interaction is needed for this service. So bind method is used. And the on start command method is called when you start the service explicitly using the start service method. When you launch this activity uses the service on bind is called. When you click on a particular event or the button, then on start command method is going to be invoked to start the actual service of that activity. Then the constant is used start sticky so that the service will continue to run until it is explicitly stopped. Sticky means it won't allow until unless it's completion of the current task. It won't allow you to do the other part of the device work until unless it completes its task. The on destroyed method is called when the service is stopped using the stop service method. This is where you can clean up the resource used by your service. Let us see the snippet code of this. Okay, screen is visible, right? See, to bind the service, already we have seen with the in sending SMS, we have used pending intent and pending intent to bind the activities or the applications. To bind the internet connection, we use socket programming and as well as HTTP. Now to bind the services, in addition to those, we need to have the intent service as well, and also the app service. Android.app.service, the intent is used, and the iBinder intent binder is used here with the OS activity. Suppose if it is an user activities, intent is enough. If you are binding the activity to the operating system services, iBinder is required. Application services, app.service is required. Those as usual we are using in our code. Suppose I am defining here my service extends the service class. So public iBinder on bind method is going to be invoked with intent argument. Which intent is wants to bind with the service? You are providing explicitly this one. Return null. So first, the permissions required to bind the service. This is default. No special permissions are used here. It's a default because you are binding your activity to the current system. You are not going out of your device. The service active. You are binding your app activity within your device only. You are not going outside the world. So no additional special permissions are not needed in the manifest.xml file. So and GUI activities, as you've seen, two buttons. One is start service button, BTN start service, BTN stop service. On click start service method will be called, on click stop service method will be called. See, on click when it will call the on start service, service view is going to be accepted, and start service new intent get base context from current context to the service class. That service class is called here. My service class is defined here. Here you are providing the service, which if you click on start button. So in this, what you defined is on start command method is going to be invoked. On bind is called to bind the service. Then on start command is invoked to start the service. The intent which you passed is current context intent, means current application. Int flag which you passed is here, where you called flag. Then the third parameter is my service class. Start ID is this. We want this service to continue running until it is explicitly stopped. So return sticky. So toast make this service started message is displaying that show, and return start sticky until unless if you are clicking. I'll show you. Until unless still you are clicking stop service, this toast which is sticked on the activity is not going to disappear. Means when you click stop service only, stop service stopped displaying. It is a sticky until unless you click on that button, the next action toast will be called. That is start sticky is used to stick the value rather than specifying the toast timing. Clear? See, on destroy will be called super dot on destroy. The current context is called service destroyed, means it clean up the memory when you close the application, right? This is how you can start bind your service, start your service and stop your service. Until unless if you click the buttons, the message which it would display when you start the service going to be disappear, and the next service which you call the stop service is going to be stick. So the constant value what you are passing is return start sticky. Okay. So this is illustration of that. All services that you have created, all services that you have created must be declared in the Android manifest.xml. In this case, service Android name dot my service, means the launch activity you need to be defined under the service tag. Service tag. If you want your service to be available to other applications, you can also always add an intent filter with an action name like this. For example, as of now, this service is available to current application activity. Suppose you want to allow that other application is going to be interact with that service activity, like scanning the remote scanning. Remote scanning is a service which will happen remotely from one server to the client mobile phone, right? Remote service, whether it is required to allow the service or not, right? If you want to allow that, you need to explicitly specify intent filter. intent filter that is required to define here by adding the following code. Action tag is defined. Action Android name, the path where that service is available. Why it is required to provide the relative path here? So since many services might be defined by the system with the same name, to avoid the name conflicting of the service, you provide to require either absolute path or the relative path of the service in the intent filter. If you don't want to make others to access your service, you just ignore this. You require to add the service my.myself like this. Okay. To start a service, you use the start service method like this. Start service, new, intent, get base context, the current context, and invoking my. This is first parameter in the intent, that is first current class. Second parameter is in the intent is the it is going to switch the context in by invoking that service start service method. If you are calling this service from an external application, external suppose remote scanning application, take that. If it is calling from outside the application, then the call to the start service method look like this. Start service as usual, new intent as usual. Rather than this, the only one parameter is used. Means this action, the external applications request for the external, the service of the current phone. Then also you have a granular control whether you want to allow the scanner, remote scanner to access your contact list, content providers, etc. and so on. So again, that's another topic of interest to discuss. Suppose to stop a service, use the stop service method like this. Stop service, new intent, current base context to my service dot class. Which service you are going to stop, you need to explicitly specify this stop service method. Clear? Is it interesting? Yes. Now, another subtopic of services and activities is just now we have already done with this, because activity we used to interact with service. Button, two buttons are present, start service and stop service button. This is a GUI activity. Basically it is activity itself. When you call the start service, that is going to be bind the service which will happen at the background. When you stop service, clicking user interaction is needed in this case. When you click on stop service, again it binds the activity and recalls the service which it was started. So you may have a service that periodically logs the geographical location of the device to a database. See, now we are gradually moving towards to learn the concept with respect to the database. Now, suppose if your activity is keep on fetching the information about the device. Suppose if I am in the MCA department, my device with me. If I move from my cabin to the head of the department cabin, obviously device movements from one latitude and latitude to some other latitude, geographical location. So it needs to be updated. Suppose if you want to keep track of a person who is he now or she now, to keep track of the person technically you can make use of these services and activities, and also it needs even you can have the GPS, also you can have a LPS, or also you can have a satellite communication to keep track of a entity or a person, right? Now we'll have a snippet code to discuss with this the communication between services and activity. Okay. In this current discussion, I'll give the overview of the discussion. Then you are able to clearly understand the example snippet code. See, you are requested for downloading request, and also you started working on some other service of an activity. Suppose if you are requesting the download request from the Amazon web service. So how you are requesting? Through GUI. First you go with GUI, start activity and this activity. Then you need to have the include the packages like java.net malformed URL exception, URL intent service in the app intent service, intent log. So you are defining customer class my intent service extends the intent service, and also created the base constructor default constructor of my intent service, like super my intent service name is going to be display when you create the when you create the object of the my intent service. Then on handle intent method is going to be invoked. Suppose if you are downloading a file from some file.pdf from Amazon, you are specifying that there's a new URL download file method. Uh, Result is intent service started, downloaded. The result value is whether this file is downloaded or not, how many number of bytes, etc. It is going to be fine. Now send a broadcast to inform the activity that the file has been downloaded. So once the file is downloaded, that should be notified to the downloader, and that should be notified to the who has provided the downloading content. Those two activities process should happen. So for that, broadcast intent is going to be created as a new intent, and set action. What set action is going to be set on the broadcast intent is file downloaded action. Get base context dot send broadcast. You are sending broadcast intent as file downloaded action. If any malform in the URL, then exception will be catched here. So when you call the download file method here in the result, in turn the call initiates here by passing the Amazon URL here. Now simulate taking some time to download a file. It's a for simple simulation. Thread does click 5000 seconds. So until unless it is keep on downloading, means it is waiting state of the thread download. For example, you can calculate based on the file size file size required, file size and the internet and broadband bandwidth. Based on that, you can calculate the appropriate time required to download a file. So based on that, you can even customize thread.sleep. Instead of directly, you can, instead of putting 5,000 here, you can calculate and put here, right? It is again in the form of integer. Finally, if something happens to download during runtime, you can catch that exception here, interrupted. Or suppose if you want to cancel the download when you interrupted exception will be called and it will be handled. Yeah. Then you are binding the your service through the activity on by calling on resume method. So once the application is downloaded, the current activity should get highlighted and start accepting the input from the user. For that, on resume method is defined. You had an this one activity life cycle. Activity life cycle already we have discussed in the module 3 as a first slide. On create, on start, on pause, on resume, on restart. Also, those things we have discussed. When on resume is called, when the current activity is paused due to a downloading a file. Once download is completed, finished, then the activity is revoked by on calling on resume method. That activity calls the on resume method. Intent filter, new intent filter is used. Intent filter add action, file downloaded action. File downloaded action is going to be set to the intent filter. Register the receiver, as we have seen in the discussion of sending the email and sending SMS. So to the intent filter, you need to register receiver, intent filter and broadcast receiver. You need to register the receiver. Which receiver you are registering? Intent receiver with intent filter. And on pause method is going to be invoked to unregister the receiver, intent receiver. Then start service is defined to start the service of the service requested by the user. Either start service, new intent get base context when this service happening inside a application to the current activity. This service happens when external party calls the start service method. When external, like remote scanner request for the current service of that activity, you define this. Otherwise, internal means current activity is going to fetch that service. In our case, we are going to use the within the application. You are going to start the service. Then stop service will be called when everything is get downloaded. In our case, it is download. Our case of example is downloading example. Once it is downloaded, it is completed, you can call the stop service method to stop the service which has given from the my service class to the current context. And the broadcast receiver is defined intent receiver. To this intent receiver is registered or unregistered. If register means it is going to receive the SMS messages or toast messages whether service has been completed his task, its task or not. If it is registered, it is going to push the message with the help of toast notification on receive the current context from which service and what is the intent, the binding. So these two parameters are accepting in the on service. Then that is going to be display as a toast message as file downloaded. file is downloaded, a downloaded message is going to be pop up when the broadcast is initiating. When broadcast is initiating means that broadcast receiver is binding to the thread data slip of that downloading file. Once downloading is completed, automatically it triggers means you need to define that code. Automation won't work by itself. When you define that code, it is initiating. Okay. Then on handle is defined to notify an activity when a service has finished its execution. You broadcast an intent using the send broadcast method. Send broadcast method is used to notify once the service is completed by the processor, and that is notifying back to the main activity. Clear? Is it clear? Here you use send broadcast intent. Once the downloading action is completed, it is going to be push that message down, file is downloaded. If for cancel interrupted exception, it will be thrown. I hope you understood the communication between services and activities. Some of the additional content which we are going to discuss in addition to that, the binding activities to services. Binding activities to services. See, in real world, actually what we discussed is here one service and one activity. In real world, there is two more services in one activity, two activity accessing one service, etc. and so on. In real scenario, services are usually much more sophisticated, means complicated. For example, if you want to transfer the amount from PhonePe to another PhonePe, what is the service involved? First, your request should be authenticated, authorized, bank, that request goes to your home bank, they will validate your request and authorize for debit your account, and that is goes to the central server of the bank. That there it switches from current bank to, suppose if you are sending to another bank person, that bank, central banks, it will go. Then from that central bank to the home bank of that destination customer, then they will validate whether really it is your account or not, and validate, and that is going to be credited. So this is an entire background process of just single click of transferring your amount from one account to another account. This is the actual scenario, right? So requiring the passing of data so that they can do the job correctly for you. In this example, you are passing the information. What information? Just you given the phone pay number of your friend. That phone pay is linked with some XYZ bank, ABC bank to XYZ bank. ABC bank is in this ABC bank you have a account. You are the account holder. So in the XYZ your friend has account holder, but you are using phone pay service. Yes, it's a mid in communication exchange service you are using. So what and all use these five entities are involved to do that. In between all the communication is happening means you are passing your data. Your mobile number with UPI code and the code is connected with the bank account. That bank account with the ABC bank ABC bank has a debit authority to debit your amount that is crediting. So all these data is involved in this process. So that is a scenario, one scenario. Another scenario, suppose the calling activity determine what files to download instead of hard coding them in the service. Rather than putting them in the service, just by calling the activity to determine what files are downloaded. Right. First, in the calling activity, you create an intent object specifying the service name. You before to define this scenario, calling activity means the another activity from current activity to another activity. In this case, my service class. You are calling from current context to the my service class. For that, what you need to define is that you create an intent object. You create an intent object. Intent equal to new intent object. To start that service, start service method will be invoked. You then create an array of URL objects and assign it to the intent object to its put extra method. Put extra method is used to add the objects onto an intent. On the service end, you need to extract the data passed in through the intent object in onStart command method. We'll see this code in this code window. See here, in the previous context, we had only one file download from Amazon. Now you are downloading multiple files from the. So previously we did it with service and the activity. Now we are going with the service intent filter. Service intent filter to download the files. For that, in the start service method, you need to define an intent which has a service call. You require to have the array of the URLs which you are going to download your files. Suppose here 4 files are going to be download. From that, to bind all these URLs to an intent filter, intent, you need to use the put extra URLs. This is the string and value, key value pairs it is used. Put extra, your URLs are appended for this key value. So then start service intent is going to be bound, means all the 4 files are is going to be downloaded. That you defined here on start. When start service is called, on start command, it is going to bound intent this object, int flag and int start id. From where first file to last file, 4 files 0 to 3, it is going to be called. So we want this service to continue running until it is explicitly stopped. So return sticky. You use the return sticky to return sticky to stick the toast message is going to be displayed. So service started message object. How many objects you are downloading? The 4 different objects. You are obtaining that with the get extras and URLs equal to new year objects URL length. Through the help of the for loop, you are retrying the each objects of the URL, the each objects file which is present in the each URL, that will be assigned to the URLs I, and do task background dot execute URLs. URLs is passing through that. Finally, use the return start sticky until unless downloading all the files it should not disturb the current activity screen. So uh, it is going to display the 4 files are downloaded, all files are downloaded. This code is binding with the data, do the background task which were discussed earlier in the code, right? This is an method is going to be executed by passing all 4 URLs. Those are going to fetch through the services which you have created. Clear? Okay. Anything is there? Any questions are there? We'll discuss the actually the topic. These subtopics are not no till now. That's fine. But next session onwards, what we are discussing, that topic actually it is not there in the syllabus. I think why I don't know why they are not mentioned that in the syllabus, but this is important for the database interaction with your activity. So that's why I have added to discuss here. That is data persistence is the most important concept for the mobile application users, because without database, what is the use of using the mobile application? Because most of the time, if we capture the photo, that is going to be stored. If we talk, if we speak with someone else, where call is going being recorded, that is going to be stored. So storing is a main motto. I don't know why they are not mentioned in the syllabus. Fine. Anyhow, this is very important to discuss. So from next session, I'll discuss this topic, that is data persistent. Any questions are there? You can ask me for the internal syllabus, second module, remaining syllabus, and the third module, third complete module. This fourth module will not be there. So third module and second module, remaining portion of the first internal. Okay. Fourth and fifth module will be there for your third internals. Thank you. If any questions are there, let me know.